Hi, John Harper here. Today I'd like to speak a little bit about an aspect of essence or reality that seems to be very challenging for most of us and why that may be the case. But first I want to speak a little bit about value. Value seems to be an issue with almost everyone, which makes sense because our ego and personality has no real connection with value. At its core, at the core of the ego is emptiness. And the ego interprets and reacts to that emptiness as some kind of lack, some kind of deficiency. And as we know, the ego is oriented around seeking pleasure. And a great deal of that seeking, that ego activity, is oriented around the issue of value. The ego is trying to find value, to find meaning and significance and purpose outside of itself. And of course, all of that seeking is oriented around our ego ideal, that vague, undefined sense of what it would take to make us complete, to give us satisfaction, to make us perfect, to make life everything that it could be for us. And since it's oriented around that ego ideal, that just invites in our superego into the whole party. And it brings in our unconscious conditioning and all of our beliefs that we've taken on in life. And it locks our attention and efforts on external objects of value, like a better job, a bigger car, a bigger bank account, the perfect partner. We even have a multi-million-dollar industry that runs on helping us to set goals and achieve success in order to fill up this vacancy of value in ourselves. All of this is a great example of how we focus and invest our time, attention, and resources in a way that keeps us locked into dynamic inertia that never leads us any closer to what's really needed to satisfy our heart and soul. Have you ever heard that saying, the only way out is through? Well, we need to untangle value from the objects of value and focus our energies on what is value. And if we do that, it's going to immediately lead us to explore the lack of value. And we need to see where that leads us. You know, there's this simple magic in our life that I still find kind of mind-boggling. That if we stop seeking something to fill up the lack and bring ourselves into the present moment to explore just exactly what is our experience right now, everything opens up. Everything moves forward. The doorway is wide open to all of the answers and fulfillment and satisfaction that our heart and soul long for. Now, the dictionary defines value as the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, the worth, or the usefulness of something. Well, where does all that regard, importance, worth, or usefulness come from? From the ego perspective, it's always from the outside. So much of our value is based upon what we see others valuing. But if you look at that, if you look at the dynamics involved in how we put value on something or how others do, ultimately what gives things value is we give them value. We invest something of ourselves into something that gives it value. We invest and imbue the essence of value into something. And that's what makes it valuable. Nothing has value just sitting out there on its own. And now I'll say a few words about that quality of reality and our soul that I see most challenging for many people to experience. It was for me, and so far I see it in everyone else's experience. Though there may be an exception, I just haven't met that person yet. And that quality is preciousness. So what is preciousness? If you look in the dictionary, preciousness is defined as something that is beyond value. It's priceless. So it's a different dimension or degree of some sense of worth or fulfillment. It's beyond that dimension of value, deeper than value, closer to home. One thing I noticed after a few years in the work was that getting in touch with the real was more painful than ego's pain and suffering, and the issues that would come up for me that were in that realm of ego angst. Getting in touch with the real brought up a kind of pain that was excruciating, that seemed to be a paper cut on the soul. And I got curious about that. And I really wondered, why is that? Why is getting in touch with the real so painful? And what I came to see, and I'd be interested if this is part of your experience also, is that in remembering the real, and by that I don't mean a memory of the real, I mean the real rises up in us and we're in contact with it and we're fully experiencing love or value or strength or preciousness or beauty. And that brings into awareness the disconnection from being that we have been living with. And in that experience of being with the real, it makes it painfully clear how separation from our nature is the essence of all pain and suffering. And we have been complicit in our daily realities of pain and suffering. And this directly challenges our beliefs that we are unlovable, that people don't care for us, that we are unworthy, insignificant, and the list goes on and on. And as that is revealed to us through our recognition of preciousness, it's just a ruin of the heart, like Rumi says, that we have been living so long disconnected from ourselves, and unnecessarily so. It reminds me of a friend who had hip replacement surgery after years of suffering and almost crippling disability. And to watch her walk through the world and suffer with just the simple act of trying to walk across a room, and had those hips replaced, and I talked to her about it afterwards, and she would just break down in tears almost, having lived so long with the suffering, when something as simple as a hip replacement, which seems pretty simple these days, relieved all that. And she was back to a life without that pain and suffering. And that seemed to me to be a perfect reflection or illustration of this issue we have around preciousness and getting in touch with our nature, and then realizing that we've been out of touch and disconnected from that nature for so long, and it seems so pointless in a way. It's unbearable to think of what we've been putting ourselves through, and all of those beliefs about being unlovable, that people don't care about us, are just lies. Because there's nothing more precious than you. Without you, there's no preciousness for all of existence. because you are the existence of preciousness. When preciousness awakens in us, we do not see preciousness. We are preciousness. And if we can tolerate the pain and beauty of the awakening, we will be transformed inside and out, down to the very last atom and beyond. So as we explore value and then preciousness, which lies beyond value, let's see if we can just relax into the arising of the real and let that transformation happen.